Well, I guess it's fair to say that the great one is all elite. Man, it's been a while since I've watched a full Dynamite episode. I think the last time I watched a full episode, Kenny Omega just became a champion. Few quick notes about the show. Orange Cassidy finally got a new pair of jeans. Matt Hardy is going to have his own Royal Rumble match. Is it 1985? These two are so alike, I think Orange just duplicated himself. And oh my god, I don't know what Renee Young is feeding this man. It might be Brock Lesnar's milk. That's a big boy. It's been a while since I've watched AEW. It's been a while since I've made a video about AEW outside of CM Punk's return. And I had my reasons, obviously for the most part copyright, and I honestly just stopped watching because during the pandemic, wrestling just sucked and I kept watching WWE because, you know, it gets the most views, you want to see it, and I just figured I don't want to risk my channel. But lately I'm seeing that everyone is making AEW videos, and if you don't use actual video footage, I might be able to make these videos. I can't make any promises, but hopefully that's the case. I'm gonna be honest, man, AEW is just impossible to ignore right now. It's so big, it's growing. The roster is just as good, if not better, than the WWE's roster. And if we're staying positive right here, basically what CM Punk said, it feels like a big family. Unlike in the WWE, it's just a business. If they feel like they don't need you anymore, even though you're a big superstar, they're gonna get rid of you. This feels like a big family, and this kind of crap wouldn't happen. A lot of it probably has to do with Tony Khan's passion for pro wrestling. I've watched the full CM Punk and Tony Khan conference, or whatever it was called, and you can see how much this guy loves pro wrestling. The guy is marking out at everything CM Punk says. And that's exactly what's lacking in the WWE right now. It almost feels sometimes, it's probably the case honestly, they're just here to squeeze the last dollar out of the business. There's nothing wrong with making a lot of money, I don't have a problem with that, but for fans, it's not really an excuse to have terrible television. We shouldn't care how much money WWE makes. And maybe it's just because AEW is still new, you can clearly see the passion, and I'm here for it. So hopefully I'll be able to make these videos. You know, I know most of you really wanted me to, but you know, I'll just try. We'll see. And one more thing, since I didn't watch for a very long time, I don't know all the talent. Sometimes I won't make any sense, but bear with me. The show kicked off with Orange Cassidy versus Matt Hardy. At the beginning of the match, we saw the light kicks versus delete. That was actually a funny way to kick off the match, but honestly, I'm a bit concerned. Are Matt Hardy's legs okay? The man might need surgery. So that was a bit of a comedy match, if you can call it that. That's basically every Orange Cassidy match as far as I remember. Matt Hardy is using his big money Matt gimmick right now. He's a heel. So we also saw, I guess, money spots during this match. And that was probably unintentional, but we also saw blood. I know all of you will agree with me. Once we see blood in wrestling, no matter how, you know, uninteresting or unimportant or whatever the match is, it does get a lot more interesting. It feels a lot more legit, a lot more real. I'm sure this time it was unintentional, but it actually added a lot to the match. Hardy tried to do a submission, Cassidy gets out of it, he does a sit down pin with his hands in his pockets, and he wins the match. Typical wrestling stuff, you know, none of their credibility was hurt. So that was a nice way to kick off the show. I'm sure many people enjoyed the comedy stuff at the beginning of the match, and also every time I see the TV14 sign, it just feels good. It just feels good, doesn't it? Malakai Black says he agrees with Arn that Brock Anderson isn't over his head tonight. He says Brock should wait for the bell, roll out of the ring, and take the loss. And then say I'm sorry. He also threatened the whole Nightmare family. So I have seen some clips of AEW on Twitter, and you know, I've seen that Malakai Black defeated Cody, which is a big deal. That's how you book the guy. It's like a completely different person. His attire didn't change much, but he's like a completely different person. AEW looks like a complete superstar. And it's, again, I've said this many times, it's absolutely crazy. How can you have a guy like Aleister Black who basically has it all? He has the promo skills, the looks, the wrestling skills, and you still release the guy. You don't know what to do with the guy, and you keep people like Eva Marie on the roster. Now, I don't have a problem with WWE keeping Eva Marie on the roster, but, you know, when you release like 50 wrestlers a year and you keep the ones that don't really add any value to the show, I think it's a fair point. So I'm really happy for the guy. Then we saw Chris Jericho in the ring, who obviously questions his wrestling abilities because he lost 3 times in a row, I think, against MJF, which is, I assume, one of the biggest rivalries of AEW. It's driving him crazy, and if he can't beat MJF, maybe he shouldn't be in wrestling anymore. So he says, you know, if I can't beat MJF at All Out, I'll join the commentary team and I won't be wrestling in AEW anymore. We saw MJF, who says that it did feel great to beat Chris Jericho, but it would be even better to end Chris Jericho. So he, tells Jericho to really think about it because obviously he's gonna win the match. He's better than you, and you know it. MJF is really young, and he's already that great on the microphone. He's like a fish in the water, honestly. Like, you can tell this guy is gonna be huge. I'm interested in what's gonna happen in like 10 years. How much this guy is still gonna grow. I've seen many people on Twitter saying that they don't wanna see MJF losing at All Out, but that's probably gonna happen because Chris Jericho might have to retire if he loses. He's already established, and knowing AEW, they wouldn't just make MJF lose for the sake of ending his push. We saw Lucha Bros versus Varsity Blondes, straight from the 80s, man, straight from the 80s. This was an AEW Tag Title Eliminator Tournament match, which was pretty good. I wasn't too crazy about the matches, if I'm being honest. There are 2 ways you can look at it. CM Punk was advertised, so, maybe it was a good decision to actually, have a lot of important matches with big stars. On the other hand, since CM Punk is advertised, maybe you want to have a lot of young, fresh talent who are a bit less known, so they would get a lot more exposure. There are 2 ways to look at it, so I don't really have a problem with that, but I'm one of the people who didn't watch AEW in a while, so I wasn't too crazy about it. Lucha Bros won the match and they advanced to the finals against Jurassic Express on Friday's Rampage. Now look, I'm not sure if I'll be able to make Rampage reviews because I don't think it's gonna be that interesting. It's mostly just gonna be matches, and I'm sure we're gonna get some interesting, important matches, but I'll probably just talk about that stuff during my Dynamite reviews because the show is really, really short and the videos would be a bit too short, and I don't think I'll be able to make anything interesting out of it because I'm sure the first 2 episodes were big. Obviously Christian won the Impact Championship, CM Punk returned. I don't think the next episodes are gonna be that huge. It's just gonna be a few matches, so I'll just talk about it on my Dynamite reviews unless something really important happens. Then we saw Jamie Hayter versus Red Velvet. I'll give you that, it does look like the women's division improved since the last time I've watched. A lot. And Jamie Hayter won the match. And then it was time for the best in the world, CM Punk. Just watching the entrance was one of the biggest highlights of the show. Man, wrestling is so cool right now. Like, CM Punk came back. How is it even possible to ignore AEW right now? So I really hope I'll be able to make these videos. Obviously, we heard a lot of CM Punk chants. It was so loud that when Tony asked CM Punk questions, CM Punk said, "Tony, I can't hear you." The question was, what brought him back? He said it's guys like Pillman Jr., Jungle Boy, Penta, Ray, and others. Before those names though, it's Darby Allin. Punk says he's no longer the voice of the voiceless because there are people in the back that listen. I know a lot of people have a problem with AEW taking shots at WWE all the time. I don't have a problem with that. I think it's entertaining. Sometimes it's a bit too much and unnecessary, but if anyone has a reason to do that, well, it's CM Punk. Can CM Punk still go? Is he still the best in the world? If the answer is yes, it starts with Allin. He also said Allin would have been his favorite wrestler when he was 15 years old. I would have to agree. Darby Allin is really cool. As cheesy as it sounds. It's a lot less about proving the haters wrong, it's more about proving myself right. Allen doesn't fit the mold of what someone else think a pro wrestler is. He's not the biggest or strongest, but he's got heart. The crowd start chanting yes, and this is where it gets even more interesting. Punk says that's someone else's shtick and they just have to be a bit more patient. Daniel Bryan is going to be in AEW. We already knew that. I think he already signed the contract, but now they're even teasing it on television. So CM Punk knows something. Man, we kinda knew that at one point Daniel Bryan is going to sign with AEW. For me, it was a bit disappointing because I didn't watch the show. But like I've said, I do get it. Daniel Bryan is not a sports entertainer. He's a professional wrestler. He loves wrestling. He loves to be in that ring. And with WWE's limitations, AEW is the perfect place for Daniel Bryan. Seeing Daniel Bryan and CM Punk in the same ring after all these years is gonna be really fascinating. One can only hope that this is going to turn into a rivalry, but as far as I'm concerned, for a very long time at least, they're both gonna stay baby faces. CM Punk also posted this on his Instagram, and it's actually a picture of Daniel Bryan and CM Punk. He's coming. We don't know when, but he's coming. Don't get your hopes up for All Out, but he's coming. He also said April, I love you, which is AJ Lee. So yeah, CM Punk is in AEW, which actually proved to be, beneficial. I think AEW got something around 1.2 million viewers. Ratings are not everything, but it's still a pretty big deal. And I think it's the third or second best Dynamite rating, which is... That's pretty big, Maybe I expected a little bit more, but it's still pretty impressive. Then we saw Jon Moxley and Eddie Kingston. Really love the entrance and the theme song. And Darby Allin with Sting. If there was ever a perfect pair between a current wrestler and a legend. Versus Ryan Nemeth, Bononi, and JD Drake. Yeah, I mean, it's a 6-man tag. Not the biggest fan of these, but like I've said, I do get it. They want to have a lot of talent involved in this show because they knew they're going to get some kind of an increase and in viewers, so I kinda get it. By no means it was bad. I just kinda expected at least one huge match on the show, but we didn't really get that. And of course, the babyface team won. Then we saw AEW World Champion Kenny Omega, Don Callis, and Brandon Cutler. I love the way he just cleans the championship. What a nice touch. For how long he's been doing that. That's really smart. If I understood that correctly, Don Callis was a promoter back in the day. Christian worked in his company, but only for one match because he felt like he doesn't need Christian. But he has something better in Kenny Omega, who was at that time 10 years old. Okay, that's odd. That's kind of funny. But I dig it. They're going to take down Christian Cage once and for all. Christian comes out and he calls him a corny piece of shit. Christian can't believe Omega is still even bothering with someone like Callis. Don gets angry. It seems like he's looking for a fight. He even compared himself to all the promoters. He even mentioned Vince McMahon, which was really cool to hear in AEW. Again, I know many people have a problem with this, but I like it because it feels real. He tells Christian at All Out he'll be what he's been his whole career, second best. And then we saw the brawl. We also saw Frankie Kazarian. You get the point. So I think what they meant is, Edge. Christian always was less successful than Edge, which was a nice little touch to the promo. I dig this, I like the storyline, although I gotta say, it's kind of unfortunate that it's really predictable. We saw another 6-man tag, and like I've said, I know why, but, I would prefer something else. And the Gun Club won. And in the main event, we saw Malakai Black versus Brock Anderson. And this was, I know it's not a very important match, but I do dig the story. Brock Anderson is basically still green. He's trying to fight someone who's been wrestling for like 20 years. I really like the story. We see a legend with his son and, he's trying to prove himself, but unfortunately he couldn't get the job done. Malakai Black looked like an absolute superstar right here. That kick looked really impressive. He obviously takes the W, and he even knocks out Arn Anderson. I love the way AEW are booking Malakai Black. And that was your show. Great stuff, man. Overall, I did enjoy the show. Like I've said, I did have my problems, but for the most part, it was really entertaining, especially the promo work. That was the absolute highlight of the show. I like the freedom. You can always tell these guys have the freedom. It feels more edgy. It feels more real. So I guess if everything goes right, if you guys want me to, I'll keep reviewing Dynamite. It's impossible to ignore. And maybe I feel that way because after watching Raw for the last months, I don't know, it does feel refreshing. So thank you for watching this video, the great one. Peace, love, and hugs. It's been a pleasure.